Hey everybody, I'm Curtis.
And I'm Hannah.
And this is Love at First Fright. Welcome back to another episode.
Yep. If you are listening to these in real time, then you got a twofer today.
Yeah, I'm glad you refilled your big
popcorn,
big water bottle.
Yeah.
With like the times down the side of it.
Yeah.
But it's 3 p.m.
So it's 3 p.m.
Yeah, it's 3 p.m. right now, but you just filled it up an hour ago.
Right.
And so you're just now passing the 9 a.m. mark.
So you're behind the
And
ball.
so, but now you're starting to feel self-conscious about taking the water bottle out in public because people are going to be able to see the water line.
And they see that you haven't.
And they're going to be like, oh, wow, they're not drinking.
This person didn't drink since 9 a.m.
Wow, that's crazy. Why would they do that?
Yeah.
That's
the level of self-conscious.
And then you're gonna chug way too much water so that you can be a little bit ahead of the 3 p.m. mark. So then people will see it and be like, wow, good for them.
Wow,
they're drinking so much water, they're actually a little ahead of schedule.
Yeah. See, I'm the kind of person that would get so embarrassed by that I would just fill up my water bottle to like whatever time it is.
That's okay. That's crazy.
Work from there. It's so true though. Like today, this is kind of just a side tangent, but I'm wearing like a baseball cap today, and I totally get that thing where whenever I put on a baseball cap, which is very rare, where I'm like, every fucking person that sees me knows that I'm not a hat guy, and they can all tell that like I don't normally wear hats,
right?
And that I look weird. Well,
I mean, I don't think they think that.
I think they do.
No, it's funny. I kind of get the same level, I think, of like self-consciousness about like a hat or my hair or something like that. And what I think is really funny about it is that when I interact with people on a day-to-day basis, it's like a thing that I just don't register about the person. Yeah. Like if I'm talking with them, maybe from afar, and I see them and I know they're not going to see me, I can see them and I'll be like, that person's weird or whatever.
What the hell? You're just judging people who are out of earshot?
Yeah. No, it's in my own head. They're never going to hear it.
This is only making my anxiety worse.
No.
The only thing that's helped with my anxiety is me telling myself, hey, nobody actually notices any of those things. The issue is that I'm the person that does notice. Yeah.
Well, no, what I'm saying, though, is I think more often than not, people don't notice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, people wear stuff all the time, but, like, think about the last time we went to the grocery store and name, like, a single thing anybody was wearing there.
Nothing.
Yeah. And I know we usually use the self-checkout, so, like, saying, what is the cashier wearing doesn't really help because, like, you wouldn't have interacted.
Kroger uniform.
Yeah, just like a Kroger uniform or whatever. But, like, yeah, I just, I don't know that people really register it, so you're fine.
Yeah. Well, I guess I don't need to go to therapy anymore.
Yep, we fixed it.
You solved it, babe.
Yeah, I'm good at this. I quit.
We should trade jobs. But anyway, regardless, we're drowning our sorrows in Dr. Pepper milkshakes.
Yeah, we went to Whataburger, and we were just going to get, I think we probably were just going to get normal drinks. I don't think it was like a milkshake day.
No.
But then they had the little sign as you approach the drive-thru.
It's like limited time.
Yeah, and I was like, well, they got me.
Milkshake.
They got me. So
yep.
We both got them, and I kind of made an oopsie, and I ordered larges for both of us.
So
and it's way too much milkshake. We're not going to finish this. Neither of us are going to finish these. That's okay. They're pretty good. They don't really taste like Dr. Pepper, though. At least not to me. I don't know. I think you described it best. It tastes like if you combined a float.
Yeah, like if you made a Dr. Pepper float and then you put it in a blender.
Yeah. But it's mostly vanilla and then like a little bit of like kind of just generic soda flavor.
Yeah.
It doesn't really taste like Dr. Pepper.
Yeah. But whatever. I'm a Dr. Pepper lover.
It's good.
So I love this. I support it regardless of its rights or its wrongs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway.
We can kind of get into the episode a little bit, I guess.
Today we're talking about Late Night with the Devil.
Yeah. I almost said Late Night with the Dead, which I feel like you could make a similar movie.
It's the sequel.
Yeah, but it's just zombies.
Night.
Yeah, it's like the same host, well, maybe not the same guy, but like, you know, another talk show thing, but the audience is all zombies or something.
Love
I
it.
don't know. I'm not
There's
making
something
them.
there.
I'm not
We'll
making
workshop
the movie.
it.
Get Blumhouse on that.
Blumhouse just crossed that off of their whiteboard somewhere. Damn it.
Damn it. God.
Yeah.
We'll have to put out another shitty movie.
Ooh, them's fighting words.
Cooper
I don't care who's listening.
Yeah.
Blumhouse.
Mr. Blum. Mr. House.
Yeah.
If that is your real name.
First name Blum. Last name House.
Yep. Anyway.
Yeah.
One thing that's really cool about this one, and we'll obviously talk about like the movie like we normally do. In a second.
Was that an in question?
I don't know, maybe this is the one where we really switch it up. It's kind of got a weird energy right now. Yeah. I don't know.
We are coming at this with some
I'm talking about judging
energy.
people in secret, like peeking around store shelves, being like, you freak. You went with shorts today, huh? It's raining outside. It's a weird choice. Wearing a beanie in 90-degree weather. Interesting.
What do you have to hide?
Anyway, but no, I think one of the cool things about this is our schedules didn't really line up for this one.
Yeah.
Because part of the whole thing is that we watch the movies together and then we rate them, and we don't generally talk about them when while we're watching them. If something crazy happens, we'll comment about it to each other.
We save it for in here.
Generally speaking, we save our comments, our notes for in here, so that like we actually have something to talk about and not just be like, I don't know, we talked about it already, and then it's a 5-minute podcast or whatever. And
we already had the discussion. We felt neutral about it.
Yeah,
See you next week.
Exactly. Maybe we should do that as like a little alt thing. We just do 5-minute things where we're just like, hey guys, it's us again. This one's good, or this one's bad, and then that's the episode, so people can just know really quick.
Right.
It's super spoiler free. Yeah. It's super spoiler free. It's not even really edited. It's just us screaming into the microphone as we walk back to the car from the movie.
Yep.
Anyway, but our schedules didn't really line up for this one, so we actually watched it separately.
Yeah.
At different times. I watched it like in the middle of the night.
And I watched it yesterday afternoon.
Yeah. And I think it was an interesting experience. I don't know that we're not going to make like a habit out of watching movies separately.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it'll be an interesting experience because again, we haven't talked about it really.
Right.
I think we both took notes on it.
Yeah, I took some notes.
So it'll be cool to see like what you think about it. Yeah. I do know because I made the scorecard and it's on a Google thing and we can both see our things, and the way that I made it, I can see what the average is between the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
I know where we both generally land on it, but I still think it'll be cool to hear like your opinion about certain things about the movies. Yeah.
Well, shall I give a little rundown?
Yeah, let's start talking about it.
So, Late Night with the Devil, one thing I wasn't super clear on, it's billed as being a 2023 horror movie, and I think that's because it first appeared in a film festival in 2023, like that's when it came out, but it didn't get its theatrical release until 2024.
Right.
So I guess it is a 2023 movie. Whatever you want to say. It was written and directed by two brothers, Cameron and Colin Cairns, I think is how you say their name. This was really they were part of every aspect of this. They wrote, they directed, they edited. So this is very much their project. We got a pretty good cast. We have our main character, who is Jack Delroy, the host of this late night show called Night Owls. He's played by David Dastmalchian.
Yeah.
David Dastmalchian.
Yeah.
Yep. I didn't want to get that wrong.
Yeah. Well, you had me look it up.
Yeah.
And then when it came time to say it, I'm not editing this out. I'm not editing
the
this
fear
out
in my eyes.
Yeah, you looked up at me during that pause. Like I was going to do anything to save you from whatever was about to happen.
Yeah. So He's our main character, and then we also have Laura Gordon playing Dr. June Ross Mitchell, who is a parapsychologist. We have Ian Bliss playing Carmichael Haig, who is a magician turned
skeptic,
paranormal skeptic. Yeah. We have Faisal Bazi playing Christu, who is like a psychic medium, like entertainer kind of guy. He's basically like the Long Island medium of the 70s.
A mentalist.
Yeah. And then we have Ingrid Torelli playing Lily, who is one of the people being interviewed
on the show.
She's like a survivor. She grew up in a cult.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
Normal kid stuff.
Casual. And then we have Reese Auteri, my apologies to Reese, who plays Jack's sidekick on the show, and his name is Gus.
Yeah.
So, not a ton of, like, super famous people. Like, I think the main character is, like, the only one I had seen before in anything else.
Yeah, David has been in a lot of different things. He's been in, like, both DC and Marvel stuff. Yeah, I was gonna say,
I recognize him from The Dark Knight.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he was in The Dark Knight. So he's like worked with Christopher Nolan. Like he's been in a lot of stuff.
Yeah. But it was good to see him in this leading role. I thought he carried really well.
Honestly really enjoyed it. Yeah. There's a thing about this movie, and you're gonna go over kind of the concept here in a second. But one thing I want to say is that like the movie's weird in like a really good way.
Yes.
If you're familiar with IFC, they helped, I think, produce this. And IFC is kind of known for weird stuff. It's weird in like the best way. They really, I think, captured the energy and the way that people even talk and stuff with the talk show aspect of it. Like it just feels really believable.
It was like slightly cringy.
Oh yeah.
But not because like the acting was bad, but because it was just like very authentic.
Yeah.
You know, like the bad puns and kind of the awkward moments where they're having to improvise because something goes wrong and you like feel the secondhand embarrassment for them. Like they did a really good job with that.
Anyway, what's this movie about?
So the general concept of this movie is that it is following the events of a late night talk show called Night Owls with Jack Delroy. It's following an episode that aired on Halloween night in 1977, where the host is really attempting to like boost his ratings and kind of save the show by doing something very different and inviting a girl who is, you know, possibly been possessed, and then also like a medium and a skeptic and all this stuff. So it's just like this paranormal centric episode. That's the basic prompt of it. It's also important to note that this is kind of a sort of like faux documentary, slightly found footagey analog horror kind of movie. Like the framing of it when we first start, it kind of gives you the vibe of if you've ever watched like a true crime documentary.
Yeah.
Where you have like the host giving the background and introducing you to the major players. But then the host kind of says, you know, we have found the master tape of this episode, this infamous episode.
Yeah.
And we're now going to play that for you.
Yeah.
With some like never before seen behind the scenes footage.
Sure.
And then they just let it go from there. So then we're just truly watching the episode for the rest of the film. Yeah, but it's definitely because of the era, the subject matter of like the late night show, super aesthetic movie, very 70s vibes. From the costuming to like even just like the color grading and all of that stuff. It just has very strong vibes.
Yeah.
It starts out as just a normal episode, trying to do something a little bit different, boost those ratings. But then as they're delving into this supernatural stuff, increasingly strange and disturbing things, you know, begin to happen that even, you know, the skeptic can't explain.
That's a fair way to put it. I think the movie is a really fun ride. It's not, I kind of want to preface it, it's not really that scary.
I didn't find it to be very scary.
Just kind of a sneak preview. I think both of us gave it a 4 in terms of scares on our little scorecards, and that's a scale of 1 to 10. So it's really not scary. It is unsettling at parts.
Yeah.
I do think, like you said, it does get the vibes of the late night talk show, like pretty much perfect. I also I generally really like all of the characters. I feel like I don't even want to say their motivations are clear. I think most of them are pretty complex characters. There's some really funny moments in the movie that are not unintentionally funny. They are just funny.
Yep. Can I say I actually wrote down what my favorite joke was in the movie, and it's still kind of in the early stages, but I guess he's maybe like the director. I don't know what his title would be, but his name's Phil, and there's a point where he's like tearing through backstage and all this chaos has been happening, and you just hear him angrily say, "Staging, where's my sacrificial dagger?" And it just really made me laugh.
Yeah. No, that was really good. I put a note down from when I first started watching the movie. I noticed this partway through it when it was happening, and I actually restarted the movie because this was like right at the top of the movie.
Yeah.
Did you count or notice how many like production studios, like card things, were at the beginning of the movie?
Yes, I didn't. I truly had the same thought. I almost wrote a note about it that was just like every time I think the movie started, there's another. I'm not kidding. There are 9 of them, and they keep going. They had a lot of fingers in that pot, baby.
To the point when the movie started, I wasn't actually sure the movie had started.
Right, you're
yet.
like, there's one more.
There's gotta be one more. It was really funny when I realized it. I went back and then I specifically counted to make the note about it.
I had the same reaction. I was
really,
like, wow,
really
this
funny.
is really just going ons and ons, isn't it?
I think that there's a Family Guy sketch that is about that or whatever it is.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Very, very funny. But
yeah. This one thing I did want to talk about with this movie, because obviously this is like a very independent film, and I feel like it's important to acknowledge, even though we felt pretty positively about the movie overall, there's been a little bit of controversy with this one as well because of their use of AI artwork. And my understanding of the situation is that when it appeared at South by Southwest for that initial film festival, that the AI art wasn't in there, but then when they did a couple of re-edits for the theatrical release, and basically the AI is incorporated with, there are like these title cards that the talk show uses when they're going to go to commercial break, so it'll be like a little image that says like, "We'll be right back," or whatever.
Like a skeleton on it or something like that. Yeah.
And those images apparently were made with AI, and then I think they edited them by like adding the words on or something like that. And a lot of people are really upset by that because, of course, AI art right now is a very controversial topic, and we're figuring out where AI is going to fall in the arts and everything. What I will say on it is that I do think that the conversation is important, and like it's totally worth having that conversation. I personally feel a little bit icky because of the fact that other major studios have been using AI, and they don't like, they're not held to the same, like people aren't saying let's boycott Dune because they used AI, you know? So it feels a little bit strange to me, this sort of standard of like, we're gonna hold an indie production with far fewer resources to a higher standard than the major players out there. Not to say that gives them a free pass to do whatever they want, and again, I think it's warranted criticism, but there was like a really strong movement to boycott this movie that I felt was maybe a little bit
I think
harsh.
it's a little, undue to have that level of criticism about it. Like, obviously the conversation around AI art and its use in media, I think like you said, it's a worthwhile conversation to have. We should talk about it.
And there definitely are a lot of issues with it.
Sure, absolutely. The things, exactly what we're saying, they use them as little like title card things to like end, like when the show was going to commercial or coming back from commercial or something like that. They're really like unobtrusive and easily and like the most forgettable part of the movie, like to the point that they don't really matter. Take that for what you will with the argument about AI art and stuff, but I didn't really find an issue with it. Like I knew about it before going in, so I saw it and I was like, okay, it's AI art, but like whatever.
Yeah, I had heard about this, before I watched it. And again, like I totally get it. There's concern about how AI is being used in media and what that's going to mean for like the future of the arts and everything. So again, I get it. I think it's okay to talk about it, but I just sort of felt like we've got bigger fish to fry. Like there are like major production studios that are doing problematic stuff. So like maybe let's just let this weird little freaky movie do its freaky little thing. I did want to acknowledge that maybe if you've got any hot takes on AI, you can email us.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
This movie like pretty quickly sets off with like kind of the explanation of like the whole late night show. It is like a direct competition show with Carson.
Yeah.
That's kind of the motivation that Jack Delroy has in putting this show on, is that it's supposed to be sweeps week, which is where you gain or lose a bunch of sponsors and stuff, and so he's trying to do everything he can to save the show, and we as the audience get more and more of that revealed as the movie goes on. We're kind of in the dark about this. It's important to note that at the top of the movie, we never really get to meet her. There's one scene where she's being interviewed on the show by him. She was really healthy and non-smoker, and then mysteriously develops wife develops lung cancer and then dies, and then he like disappears for a while.
Yeah, he doesn't do the show for like I think they said like a month or two,
something like that. Yeah. Then he comes back, and this is like the first show that he's doing, like when he comes back to like get the ratings up and everything. The night kind of unfolds with this whole thing, and then like weird stuff starts happening. So
that's kind of the framing of it. This is his big dream. He lost his wife, and then like he kind of has this like touching little monologue at the beginning of the episode to the audience where he's saying like, I thought at times maybe I should throw in the towel. People told me that, but like you guys, I do this for you, and like you're getting me through this and everything. And people are like, yeah, we love you. So, that is kind of where all of this, that's the framework that all of this is resting on, is that there's a lot of pressure for this to be a really successful episode. And so they keep pushing through even when there are weird things going on and things that are genuinely concerning, because they're very singularly focused on, we gotta get these ratings.
Yeah. I think it warrants being clear that like that wanting to get the ratings are Jack and like his like producer.
Yeah, I'm guessing he would be the producer.
I don't remember his name, but like they're both like pretty much equally in on like what's going on and going down, and they keep like pushing things on, like you said, even though things keep not going well, or whatever. It's actually a pretty big theme throughout the movie of people using other people to elevate themselves. Basically every character is doing that from the get-go. One of the first ones that we get to meet is Christu, who comes on, and he's this mentalist medium character, and this part made me cringe, not because it was like bad and I was like, oh god, this is a bad movie, but because it was like that secondhand embarrassment of like when things go wrong. That was
what I was thinking too when I said that earlier.
So Jack has him come on, and he's doing like a reading, for the spirits and for the audience and everything. And he does, he starts, is there like a Peter? Does somebody know a Peter? A Peterson. Yep. And then a guy, he says Peterman, and there's this whole like really embarrassing thing where he's like, but you knew someone named, or like your wife's name used to be, or whatever.
Your wife has crossed over, hasn't she? And her maiden name was Peterman. And he's like, I guess you could say she crossed over. She left me for the neighbor or whatever. And so it's like kind of this embarrassing moment where he's throwing out these things. But nothing is sticking. So he looks like a charlatan.
Yeah, he looks like a fool and a charlatan. But then he does like a successful reading. Where he manages to lock in on these two women who, I guess one of them is the sister of the deceased and the other is the mother. And he locks in on that and then does a reading for them, and everyone's like really moved by it. And then they're about to go to commercial, and then he, I guess like the demon,
Yeah.
whatever
he gets,
it is,
overcome with something.
Like his eyes roll in the back of his head, and he's like screaming, and he's like, "Oh my god, Minnie! Does somebody know a Minnie here?"
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's like claiming it, and we find out that Minnie's like the name or like a private pet name that Jack had for his wife.
Mm-hmm. I guess her name was Madeline, but he called her Minnie as a nickname.
After that, then we get to meet
Carmichael Haig.
Yeah, Carmichael. We get to meet Carmichael, who comes out, and again, he's the skeptic character. So he comes out, and he's immediately kind of inflammatory and has this opinion that Christou is a fraud, and they're actually both kind of liars and charlatans, but he's honest about it.
He has a background as like a stage magician.
Yes.
That's how he became famous.
Yeah.
And then he sort of went into this other direction. I think it was, I wrote it down. Yeah, he's part of this group called IFSIP, which stands for International Federation of Scientific Investigation into the Paranormal.
Yeah.
And so he basically has this like ongoing challenge just out there that if anyone can give him like irrefutable proof of the paranormal, he'll just give them a check for $250,000.
Yeah, and he's never had to do it because, again,
there's always a reasonable explanation.
Yep. They're kind of having this big interview, and then Christou goes to, like, storm off the stage.
Yeah, he's, like, getting increasingly annoyed by how because Carmichael's being very disrespectful, and, he's calling him a liar and all this stuff, and you can tell he's getting agitated, and it seems like he was really unsettled by the whole Minnie thing that had happened, and he was like chugging water, but still like coughing and stuff. But then he does go to storm out and leave. But then
when he does, he like spews this black, vomit,
crazy like
projectile across the stage,
like The Exorcist, like huge stream of vomit.
Yeah,
which gets all over Carmichael.
Yeah, and they go to commercial, and then they get him out of there, kind of a thing.
Get him into an ambulance.
And then we hear later that Christou actually died en route to the hospital. He never went there, and this becomes like a secret that Jack and the producer
they don't want to tell people and cause a panic and everything.
Yep. The last guest that we get to meet that comes on the show, guests, I should say, they're kind of a duo here, is Dr.
June, and then
Lily. And Lily belonged to this cult, the cult of like Abraxas.
Yeah, they followed Abraxas. And it was honestly kind of, even though it's not really the right time period, but it was kind of giving me like Waco vibes a little bit, because they were kind of giving her backstory, and I guess this satanic group had like gotten in trouble with the law, and there was some big like standoff where law enforcement was like trying to come onto the property and stuff, and instead of turning themselves in, they complete mass suicide basically.
They doused everything in gasoline, set the building on fire,
and Lily was the only survivor. And so she gets turned over into the custody of the FBI, who brings in these like parapsychologists to help because she's having symptoms that they can't explain. And it's basically it's believed by Dr. June that Lily has some kind of connection to either Abraxas or to like a lesser demon that
like serves
Abraxas, and that this demon can be like summoned in her. So she's like writing a book about her, and this whole thing. So they're coming on to the show basically as a way to promote the book. Yeah,
and the whole time like this is happening, and this keeps getting closer and closer, Jack is like acting really weird.
Yeah,
as this goes on, he keeps asking about like, have we heard anything about the girl and everything, and he seems like really on edge. We keep hearing about these like restraints somewhere and like a sacrificial dagger, and a lot of the people don't really know what's going on. Like apparently only like the stagehands kind of know what's going down, and then Jack and I guess the producer, but everyone else doesn't. There's also this like running thing of like every time they cut to commercial for the show is when we get these like behind the scenes things, and they're in black and white behind the scenes basically of Jack talking with different people. There's this like ongoing thing where the Phil is like constantly in communication with like the guys who are like watching the in studio monitors or whatever, and they keep saying that they're seeing something on like their feed, but they're not seeing it on the cameras like down there when they're filming it. And so you're kind of, as the audience, are like, what are they talking about the whole time?
What are they seeing?
But like it does eventually like kind of get explained, but like it takes basically the whole runtime of the movie for that to happen. It's a really fun little mystery there. Once they have June and Lily come out, they start like talking. There's a really creepy scene just before they cut to commercial after they first introduce June and Lily, where Lily speaks in a different voice as Jack is going to walk away.
Yeah, that was awful.
And then he looks like stunned and he goes to turn around.
Because it's kind of subtle, but she sounds like his wife.
She sounds like Madeline.
Yeah. But honestly, the whole time, like, she comes, as soon as Lily comes on, like, there's definitely something off about her. Like, she's, like, making direct eye contact with the camera at all times and being very, like, theatrical.
Yes.
And it seems like she's, like, really focused on the attention.
Yeah.
And even like, Jack at one point tells her, like, oh, Lily, you don't have to look at the camera. You can just talk directly to me. But then there's, like, another angle that's, like, kind of slightly behind her. And there's, like, a scene before they go to commercial where she's, like, fully turned her head around to look at the camera that's behind, and she's just staring into it.
Dead into the camera.
You know, there's definitely something weird about her.
Yeah, definitely something weird. But yeah, they come back and they've basically convinced Dr. June to do a demonstration on the show.
Right.
I've seen some discourse online about this, about whether or not Dr. June knew this was going to go down.
Yeah.
And how on board she was with it.
I think it's supposed to be based, if you just take the movie at face value, I think it's supposed to be that she didn't know this was going to happen, because like she has that first scene with Jack privately in one of the behind the scenes moments where she's saying like, I really don't think this is a good idea, and like blah blah blah, and you know, yes, I want to sell my book, but like, you know, not like this or whatever. And then she's kind of resistant when he suggests doing a live demonstration.
Yeah.
But also there's a certain point too, because like even Carmichael, the skeptic, says like, you know, it didn't take much convincing. Like she acts shocked and offended. She's
resistant to do it at first, but then like pretty quickly it takes almost no convincing. She just decides she's gonna do it,
right?
And you know, there's this argument that she keeps making that like she gets really upset at Carmichael specifically, because he's saying basically she's exploiting Lily, and she gets really offended and says that they're family, because she grew up in these conditions you can't even imagine, and like I'm her guardian, and she's my family and everything.
I'm the like first person she connected to.
But it is kind of an interesting thing that you know, Jack pushes her to do this demonstration, and she pretty quickly crumbles to do it. But then during the demonstration, when she's gotten the demon into Lily, and I actually want to talk about that because I think I have a little bit of some theorizing going on and everything. She loses control. She's unable to get Lily to come back right away, and she ends up slapping Lily / the demon across the face to get her to come back and everything. And I know this was the 70s and things were different and like problematic and stuff like that. But also, do you think like a doctor professional who was out there saying, I care about them because they're my family, would slap the shit out of their kid?
No.
I don't think so. So it starts to come across as, well, how much does she actually mean that?
Right. Is this fake resistance to build to the mystery and the danger?
Well, and part of it, right, is because Jack is trying to build the ratings for the show.
Right.
And they keep, in all of these behind the scenes things, they keep talking with the producer about like he's got to go meet with these people who are in the audience and they want to talk with them, and have we gotten a call from whoever yet, because they're really big and whatever to get shares and whatever. And so like part of it maybe is them conspiring to try to boost controversies. He's even talking about at one point after they do the demonstration about getting them back on the show to do this again.
Right.
it does make you wonder, you know, how much of this is, you know, staged, how much of it is, you know, actually their feelings on it. I also think it really does display some of the themes in the movie of people using other people to get ahead. Jack's trying to use every one of the guests on the show to get ahead.
Right.
Chris Stew's trying to use the audience to make himself better. Dr. June's using Lily. Carmichael is using basically any other profession to boost his own, you know, self with the skepticism thing. I think from that point when we get the possession that happens is like where things kind of kick off. Yeah. Like weird stuff happens.
Nothing really scary happens until then. That's kind of the first. Yeah.
And even then it's not. Again, it's not that scary.
I mean, yeah, it's a possession scene. It's an interesting one. Like, she kind of, they restrain her to this chair, and then, you know, Dr. June kind of leads her through this, like, okay, relax, and may I speak to the one known as Mr. Wriggles, because that's what Lily refers to this being inside of her as. And, of course, Mr. Wriggles does come out, and there is a pretty obvious, like, there are physical changes in Lily. Like, she has this, like, kind of difference in her skin and her eyes, and she looks very possessed. You know? Yeah,
she has, like, facial scars and stuff that she didn't have before.
Right, she just looks like a normal girl. Yeah. And this being is being very, like, it's very, like, taunting towards Dr. June, but there also appears to be some kind of interest in Jack. Like, there's a point where Dr. June says, I'm trying to figure out your purpose. And the demon, like, really responds to that and is like, my purpose? And then immediately turns and looks at Jack. And I forget exactly what she says, but she's basically like, it's good to see you again, or something like that. And it's implied that it's the first time they've met. So, you know, like, there's something weird going on.
Yep. While we're kind of talking about the whole possession thing, one thing I wanted to mention, kind of a theory that I've seen kicked around, and also, like, I was kind of thinking about when I watched it, was that I don't know that Lily was ever, like, in control on that night. I think the demon was there the whole time. I think the biggest evidence of this, and kind of the foreshadowing to what happens later, is when the possession is happening and June tries to get her back under control, she pulls out that, like, talisman and starts, like, saying these words at the demon. The demon's repeating it back to her, which, like, when you're speaking these words, they're supposed to have power over them. Right. They shouldn't be able to do that, right? Yeah. And then it stops, and I think what happens in there is the demon lets June think, you got me. I'm going to go back and give Lily back now. But it's just changing. And one of the other things that I think kind of supports this is that Abraxas is this, like, demon that really likes showmanship. That loves to put on a show and wants to have an audience and everything.
Carmichael even tells them that Abraxas is the origin of the famous magician phrase,
which Lily is the one who says that, says abracadabra. One of my favorite scenes later when that gets brought up again. But Lily the whole time is, like, dead staring into the cameras and, like, smiling and looking on to stuff or whatever. The first thing she really locks onto when she becomes possessed in the chair and restrained is the cameras, and then the audience, and then Jack afterwards. And then what better way to, like, capture an audience than to, like, really sell this idea of, like, the good guys are in control of this whole thing, only for it to all come crashing down in the end. Right. So yeah, I don't know that Lily was ever in control.
I don't think so either. I had the same interpretation that basically, like, she was always possessed. And this was just kind of a way. It was also like, for example, even in the scene when Jack is first suggesting, hey, let's do a live demonstration, and Dr. June is being very resistant, the reason that she changes her mind is because Lily is like, come on, we can do it. We can do it. Like, all the people who say that we're faking, we're going to prove them wrong. Yeah, we can prove them wrong. And then she's just like, okay, you know? Yeah. And so it's, like, very much everything is driven through Lily.
Yeah. I think there's some other cool little things that suggest that she's possessed the whole time. Later, Carmichael, in order to refute this, because during the possession the chair levitates off the floor, she has these like physical changes. The voice is like two different voices at the same time.
It's that kind of like bi voice thing.
Yeah,
whatever you call that.
Carmichael then is like, no, I can refute this, and he goes to hypnotize Gus, the co-host of the show, but he also mass hypnotizes the entire audience when this happens. This kind of coincides with my scariest scene, so I'll go back over this in a minute.
Sure.
The result of this is this hypnosis occurs, and like almost everyone thinks that it actually happened. Lily, when this is happening, says, why is Gus acting so funny or silly? So she's not seeing it. Why would she not see it? Everyone else got hypnotized, but Lily didn't. And it's because there's a demon. The demon's not going to be fooled by this.
Right.
So she's seeing it for what it really is. Kind of a thing. I thought it was such a good, detail to have in there. Do you want to talk about like scariest scenes?
Do you
really
want to
quick?
Go over that scene?
Yeah, we can, since I was kind of talking about it. So this whole thing where Carmichael wants to set up and kind of refute what just happened with Lily, he decides he's going to demonstrate by doing the same thing that they just did by, hypnotizing Gus and whatever. So he brings out this little, stopwatch to do a traditional like hypnosis thing, and it has the black and white spiral in it. He puts Gus into a trance, but he has the cameras also like zoom in and do a close-up on it. And so apparently, I thought this was really cool because we're supposed to kind of be the TV audience that is watching this, as well as just like the movie-going audience that is watching the movie. But it zooms in, and so when he does this, he's actually hypnotizing the studio audience. He hypnotizes Jack. He hypnotizes Dr. June. Basically everyone in the entire studio. And the result of this is he talks about Gus having this fear of worms. And when he's under the hypnosis, he points out that Gus has a hole in his neck, and he's like, oh yeah, I nicked myself shaving. And then he like touches it, and he starts pulling away worms that are spilling out of his neck. And then he's like, oh my god, what is that? And he says, they're earthworms. And then Gus starts tearing open his shirt. He's like, oh my god, they're in me. And he rips open his stomach.
And literally just worms
spilling out of his guts. And he's like pulling himself over a chair towards Carmichael. And this legitimately got me for a minute, because I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. The demon's like pulling some nonsense here. Because Carmichael starts being like, this wasn't supposed to happen. And then he like snaps, and everyone comes out of it, and Gus is fine. He's just like holding himself over a chair, and he's like, how did this happen? Or whatever. And then they play back the footage, because nobody believes that didn't happen. And it was just Gus kind of being silly. Like, everyone was hypnotized. Nobody saw these worms coming out of him or whatever.
He's just feigning. He's like pantomiming the motion.
He's like, there's worms, but there's no worms or anything like that. And it was legitimately pretty terrifying and unsettling for me when like he's like pulling himself open. I don't know that there was no CGI in it. It looked basically like all practical effects and stuff for that.
It was done.
It looked really cool and really good, like an old school practical effect. I really enjoyed it.
That was actually one thing I had in my notes about this movie in general, is that there's a lot of, special effects and stuff in this movie, and some might say that the special effects look cheesy, but I felt like it fit the vibe. Like there's a scene where they like find they like slow down a recording, and they find a frame where there's like a brief like ghost on the screen, and it looks very like 70s Scooby-Doo cartoon ghost, which normally would like take me out of it. But because this movie has such a strong visual aesthetic, it all felt natural to the movie. And a lot of the effects are like that, like when Gus is, having his moment, and then later on when more of the violence happens, it does sort of look 70s.
Yeah, no, it does.
But it makes sense. I don't know how to describe it, but I really like it.
No, it makes sense. There's a scene later where the worm thing kind of comes up again. They make reference to a thing we saw at the beginning of the movie where like it's like different sketches that were happening on old episodes of the show. And there's like this nature person that's on there, and she has like a spider in a box, and then they can't find the spider, and it's a bit, right? But in this other scene at the end of the movie where like a whole bunch of crazy hallucinogenic shit's happening or whatever, she opens the box and now it's filled with like worms, and there's like this cartoonishly big worm with like this weird toothy maw on the front of it or whatever, and it looks like those old horror movie, you know, it's pretty obviously not real or whatever, but like it doesn't feel out of place in this movie because of all of the vibes and honestly all the lead up to that, like everything else feels right. So did you have a scariest moment?
Yeah, well, this sort of goes well into what my scariest moment was. So, as we were mentioning, part of the climax of this movie is that there's kind of this weird hallucinogenic montage where Jack is like traveling through past episodes and like wrong versions of things, and he's aware of what's happening, but it like no one else in the scenes it appears to be aware, so he becomes like increasingly frustrated and, you know, confused as he goes along. But there was a scene that honestly to me it's not scary in like a jump scare way, but scary in an unsettling way, where he just like kind of gives up on the guise of like trying to go along with the scene, and he just like walks directly to the closest camera and he starts talking directly to the viewer, and he's begging them to turn the TV off.
Turn it off! Turn it off! Turn the fucking TV off! Yeah, he's just yelling at the camera.
And it was like it was really upsetting to watch. And there was kind of, I like when movies do this because there was almost a part of me that was like, felt like he was talking to me. And so it's like, I could turn the movie off and like I could stop this from happening, but I'm not, you know? Yeah.
I personally really love that all of this stuff gets mixed up by the end of it. We start as this like documentary thing, but by the end of it, we're getting this like hallucinogenic shit. And you're like, well, how would that show up on the thing? But I think it's an intentional like mixing of the media.
It's blurring the lines of reality and everything.
And it's so weird because it really does draw you into that, because then it starts to feel like, oh, he is talking to me. Yeah. You know, they do the whole thing where he hypnotizes the TV audience, but like we see what the hypnosis thing is, so like he hypnotizes us because we get to see it, kind of a thing. So I truly loved that whole thing or whatever. The ending to this is the weirdest part of the whole movie. After the big violent kind of climactic scene, we can talk about that really quick.
So like Lily gets fully taken over by this thing, and it's like her like head splits in half, and she's like got like electricity
like shooting out of her and everything.
It's a really crazy visual, but she just goes like full killer and just starts killing everybody.
Freaking Gus gets up, and the whole time Gus does not want to do this show. He figures out pretty quickly that like shit's fucky here. He learns about Christou dying, and he's like, that's a bad omen, we shouldn't be doing this. He sees like the restraint, or hears about the restraints and the sacrificial
like,
what are we doing? I'm worried about this. And everyone keeps telling him to just shut up, smile, do the show, we're gonna save the show or whatever. So he doesn't want to do any of this. He gets to watch back the whole hypnosis thing, and he's like, I've never been more embarrassed in my entire life.
I honestly felt really bad for Gus.
Yeah, you feel really bad for him. And then this whole thing with Lily happens. Her head literally splits in half. Yep. And like
with
this
like weird energy,
crazy energy shit just shooting out of her. Eyes are glowing, but like her head split in half, so they're not like lined up right. It's fucking weird looking.
It's very disturbing to look at.
And he immediately pulls out like a crucifix that he has on his neck, and he starts like trying to confront her, gets up and starts trying to confront her, and then she never touches him. His head just fully spins around, and he just drops into the table, and he's dead. And then Dr. June gets up and tries to pull out her thing to get her back under control, which is, I think, evidence that it didn't actually work before. She starts trying to do it, and the necklace ends up getting like ripped out of her hand and going backwards, and then she gets pulled up,
being like strangled
by it in the air. She's floating in the air, and eventually it like splits her neck open,
into her neck,
and then she drops to the ground. It's disgusting.
When
and
that
happens.
One of
the best part, honestly, the best part
is so mean.
Is fucking Carmichael being the skeptic the entire time, and this shit happens in front of him. He immediately is like, "This is real. This is happening." He gets on his knees and he's like, "Satan, I will worship you, do all of your bidding. Just, I will do anything you want.
Servant.
Yeah, I will be your servant, your humble servant for all of time." time,
Yes.
and this thing looks down at him, and he's staring like certain death in the eyes. He reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out the check and
Yep.
shows it to him.
Yep.
And then Lily Demon Abraxas
Whatever.
thing says abracadabra. The check disappears and he fucking like lights on fire.
Yes, and you can see like his skin blistering and all this horrible stuff.
Good.
Yeah,
It's
it was
so
such
good.
a
He just
crazy
he
moment.
just gets burned, and then like everyone's like running and trying to get out of
Yeah,
there.
there's mass chaos.
And then this is when the big hallucinogenic stuff happens,
Yeah.
where like Jack is like going through past episodes, and like he meets up with his wife again in some almost like purgatory thing. We kind of see like there's been this alluding to this like it's a real life like secret society.
Yeah. Well, in the movie, they call it the Grove.
Yeah.
Which is like, you know, this club for, you know, famous,
super
powerful
wealthy,
men.
powerful.
But
men.
they are referencing something, and I think it's called like Bohemian
Grove or something like that. I think Grove is still in it.
Yeah, Bohemian Grove. Yeah, it's like a real thing where, you know, these rich, powerful men go, and there's all these rumors about like, oh, they do rituals or like whatever, and that's how they get their power. But this is building on that to make it like actually satanic in nature.
Where we've been alluding to throughout the movie that, you know, something happened there with Jack. We know that he's been there before, but then there's this allusion to the idea that he went there during this like downtime after his wife had died before he came back, and like something happened there, I think.
My understanding was that he joined, because they talk about his participation in the Grove in the very beginning when it's like the documentary style.
Mm-hmm.
My interpretation of it was that he had gone to the Grove and completed this ritual so that his show would be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And he inadvertently caused the death of his wife because you have to sacrifice something in order to get something in return.
Yeah.
So in my experience of it, it was before his wife died that he had done that.
Sure. So either way, he has a connection to this grove, and then part of the hallucination thing is like we kind of see this stylized idea of what happened in there. We have this, you know, big owl-headed thing. The cult leader guy from the thing that apparently died in the fire is there, and he's like being made to drink something and you know, sign this deal, you know, make this pact basically. And then when he meets his wife, she talks about that is this something else that you forgot, you know. And so it's, I don't know, I think it's a very interesting way to go about ending this. It goes to show that Jack was willing to use literally anybody to get ahead. Obviously, he made some deal or whatever to get his show to be successful. We don't know the wording of the deal. Right. And so it could have been like, I want to be famous, because arguably by the end of this, he is famous. That
was my interpretation of it as well, as it was kind of a monkey's paw situation, because even before literally right before Lily pops off and everything, there's like a brief celebratory moment where the producer guy is talking to Jack in one of the behind the scenes moments, and he's like, we did it. We got it. 50% of viewers or whatever on our channel. Like, people are already calling me, like, we did it, you know? But then, of course, the final twist of this movie is that after he has this hallucinogenic experience where he's going through all these different scenes and the conversation with his wife and everything, his wife asks him to end her suffering, which he, you know, agrees to do by taking the dagger and killing her, stabbing her. But then we immediately like come back out of that, and he has the dagger in Lily, whose head is normal and like that stuff. Like the other people are dead too, but it almost kind of makes you wonder, like, did he just like go crazy and kill everybody? Like, was any of this real?
Right.
You know, so it's definitely one of those up to interpretation endings.
Yeah. I think as far as like the deaths of the other characters go, like when we do come out of that, Lily's head is back to normal, and she looks, you know, basically like a normal girl. She's just dead now. The other characters are all dead in the exact same way that we saw them before. So I think that does actually happen.
Yeah.
But I think the purpose of Lily is to be the sacrifice for Jack, right? Like that's why she's there. It's all kind of been building towards this. That I think the idea that this grove is actually just an extension of this whole cult of Abraxas. That's why we see the cult leader there when he's doing all of this. But yeah, when we cut out of that and he's killed Lily, but he's done it on live TV.
And you can hear the audience has all scattered, but you can hear police sirens approaching.
Yeah. I think it was like a fantastic way to go about ending this.
Yeah,
it was
I
like a
loved
whirlwind kind of an end.
Yeah. One thing I did want to highlight too, because I noticed it in the very beginning of the movie when they're doing that kind of documentary style background on Jack and everything.
Yeah.
There's a point where they're explaining like, oh, and then he signed a 5-year contract for the show. And there's like this, you know, quick little shot of him signing the papers with the, you know, owner of the network or whatever. And there's reporters and it was kind of quiet originally, because all these people are asking him questions. But one of the questions that slightly sticks out is a reporter saying, Jack, what have you have to sacrifice to get here? And then later we revisit that moment when he's going through his like hallucinogenic thing, only like that's the only question that you hear, and it's much more like pronounced and louder, which I think was also kind of supporting this underlying theme of like the use of others for your own gains and like, you know, the kind of the folly of ambition and all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I love that even from the very beginning, we have this little, what have you sacrificed to get here? Which kind of tells you everything that you need to know about the rest of the movie, you know?
Yep. Yeah, Jack's kind of a bad person.
Yeah, a little bit. He's a little bit of a piece of shit.
He sacrifices his own wife in order to get ahead. And I think it's most evident because, like, during that kind of intro sequence, when it's talking about when she gets diagnosed with this cancer, he brings her on the show.
He's using it for
and
ratings.
They talk about it in the little narrator voice talks about it, that it is like the highest rated episode that he's had, but it still doesn't beat Carson. So it's like he's willing to literally sacrifice his relationships, everything to be famous, to beat Carson, finally get ahead. And he finally gets it. But he has to literally kill someone.
He has to do a
TV.
murder on live TV. Yeah. It's a crazy movie. What a whirlwind.
Yeah.
Obviously, just hearing us, you can tell probably that we liked it.
Yeah, we can go ahead and rate it though really quick.
Yeah.
Like I kind of said before, I think both of us had, in terms of scares, it was a 4.
Yeah.
I'm not going to run down the entire list or anything like that, but that was, I think, the lowest thing on both of our lists.
Definitely. For
by like a good margin. I don't think anything
pretty
else
much everything else was like a 7.5 or above for me.
Yeah, I had 8s and above. But I was an 8 and then 8.5 for everything else. I really like this movie. But anyway, all of that for me results in my average being a 7.5.
And mine was a 7.3, which gives us a 7.4 overall.
Yep.
So we were pretty close.
Yeah, we were pretty close.
Which is funny considering we didn't watch it together. So you know, we still wound up on the same page about it.
Yep. It is one of those movies that I definitely want to watch again.
Oh, me too.
I started reading about it online a little bit, and just to kind of like see if like other people notice some things or whatever. And there was stuff that I didn't even notice in the movie. Like apparently in several reflections through the movie, you can actually see Madeline like behind him and stuff. There's like one early on where he's like in that mirror kind of adjusting his like tie or whatever. Apparently she's in that reflection.
I love that.
She's also like, I guess, in the reflection on like the tabletop when they're like all sitting around the table at several points or whatever. So apparently she's just around a lot.
I do feel like this movie is kind of a feast for the eyes anyway.
Yeah.
So I definitely think it would be worth a watch and a rewatch to really drink in all those little details. I really liked this movie. I would certainly see something else from these, you know, directors and writers in the future.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's about it for this one.
Yep.
Next time we are going to be doing The Lost Boys.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite vampire movies.
Yep.
I think one of like the first real vampire movies like my mom showed me when I was
I saw
younger.
this one when I was pretty young.
Yeah, and I've loved it ever since.
Yeah,
I think it's a really
also
fun.
another movie that's just got vibes for days.
Yeah, this movie slaps. It's just fun all the way through.
So check that one out before you got 2 weeks to check it out. And of course, you know, also if you want to get in touch with us, tell us your thoughts on Late Night with the Devil or anything else about horror, feel free to follow us on social media. We're at First Fright Pod on X and Instagram. We also have a Facebook page, which is just Love at First Fright, or you can send us an email. That is firstfrightpod@gmail.com. Keep them coming. Keep your suggestions coming. We'd love to do some more listener suggestions. So, yeah. Anything else for today?
No, I don't think so. I like this movie a lot. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for us on this episode, guys. As always, scare well. See you later.
Bye. What was that? Finish us out strong. All right. Scare well.